Welcome to a place where time doesn't rule love, where age is only a number, and what really matters is how someone makes your soul feel seen. Here, we tell stories that go deeper than skin, deeper than years, stories that whisper, ache, and burn with a truth that can't be faked. Stories of slow glances that say more than words, of hands that don't rush, of quiet moments after the fire, where love breathes in stillness. If you've ever longed for a love that strips you bare, not just physically, but emotionally, this is where you'll find it. These aren't fairy tales. These are raw human truths told by women who have lived them, who have surrendered to them, who now speak them. So if you're ready to feel something real, something deep, something unforgettable, subscribe now. Because some stories, you don't just listen to, you feel them. It wasn't supposed to happen. Not with someone so much younger. He was just a presence at first, a quiet hum in the background of ordinary days. Someone whose laughter drifted in through open windows, whose footsteps I learned before his voice. He wasn't trying to be seen, not by me. That's what made it feel safe. That's what made it feel different. I never meant to notice him, but there was a morning, bright and careless, where I dropped something in the garden, and he bent to pick it up before I even had the chance to reach for it. He handed it to me like it mattered, like the smallest things still deserved care. His eyes met mine for just a second too long, not in the way that men look at women, not in the way I'd grown used to being invisible, but in a way that said, I see you, I really do. I didn't smile, I didn't say much. But something shifted. I told myself it was nothing, a fluke, a kind boy being kind, but then it kept happening. Quiet moments that didn't ask for anything but left echoes behind. He listened when I spoke, not politely, not distracted, fully, like my words were water and he'd been thirsty for longer than he could admit, and that did something to me, something unexpected. There was a heaviness in me I hadn't noticed before him. A quiet resignation, a surrender to the years, to routine, to silence. I had told myself I was content, that life was quieter now, and that was okay. But the way he looked at me, it wasn't youthful foolishness or chasing something forbidden. It was reverence, like he saw past everything the world had taught me to hide. I started noticing myself again. At first, I felt ashamed of that. How could someone his age spark anything in me? What right did I have to feel alive again? But it wasn't about wanting to be younger. It was about being seen without filters. It was about the way he made me feel beautiful without even touching me. We didn't flirt. That wasn't how it unfolded. There was a kind of sacredness in our exchanges, almost like we were both afraid to break the spell. He would ask how my day was, but he meant it. He remembered the little things I mentioned, a sore back, a favorite song, the way I take my tea, and slowly that weight inside me began to lift. There was a moment I'll never forget. He came by late one afternoon, and the sun hit his face just right. I offered him tea on the porch. Nothing more. We sat in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. He leaned back, eyes closed, a soft smile on his lips, and said, This is peace. That word hit me in a place I didn't know was still aching. Because I hadn't felt peace in years, not in my own skin, not in my body, not in the quiet of my nights. It wasn't about lust. That's what people always assume, but it wasn't. It was about warmth, about the simple gravity between two souls that find each other in the dark and don't need to explain why it feels like light. I began to look forward to the sound of his voice, the gentle way he spoke, the questions he asked, the way he never made me feel like I was too much or not enough. One evening, we were sitting closer than usual. Our hands accidentally brushed, and he didn't pull away. Neither did I. He didn't say anything, but he looked at me like I was a secret he never expected to discover. Not something scandalous, something sacred. There was nothing rushed, nothing planned, just a slow, unfolding awareness. That night, as I lay in bed, I placed my hand where his had briefly rested on mine, and I cried, not out of sadness, but out of recognition, because I realized, for the first time in years, I had felt something real. Something honest, and it didn't matter how many birthdays separated us. Our bodies hadn't touched in any real way, but they had spoken in silence. The age gap, the questions, the doubts, they all faded in comparison to the stillness I felt inside. It was like coming home to myself, like finding out the parts I thought had gone quiet still had a voice, still had desire, still had the capacity to want, not to be wanted, but to want. That difference matters. He never tried to own me, fix me, or save me. He simply met me where I was, and in that meeting I found something I hadn't known I'd lost, a softness, a wanting, a quiet tremble that didn't ask for permission to exist. It just did, and in the glow of his presence, I didn't feel foolish or old. I didn't feel afraid. I felt awake. That was the beginning. The spark that ignored the rules, the years, the world, that didn't care about anything but truth. And it was enough. He never rushed, even when the space between us grew smaller, even when my breath began to change just from the nearness of his presence. He moved with quiet patience, as if he understood something sacred was unfolding and didn't want to bruise it by reaching too soon. I remember the first time he sat beside me and didn't speak. There was no need. We just listened to the world outside, a faint wind moving through the leaves, the hush of distant laughter, the subtle creak of wood beneath us. He looked over once and I felt it, not the desire to possess, but the desire to understand. He asked questions, the kind that didn't live on the surface, not what do you do or where are you from, but what do you miss most when you wake up, and what made you stop believing in magic? And when I answered, he didn't interrupt. He didn't nod out of obligation. He waited until I finished, then sat with the weight of my words like they deserved their own silence. That was the first kind of intimacy. One where you let someone see inside, not your body, not your smile, but the pieces you protect, the ones you hide because the world has taught you that no one wants to see the whole of you. He did. There were nights when the moon would catch in his eyes just right, and he'd say something so simple, so soft, that it would land like thunder in my chest. Like the time he told me, "You don't know how beautiful stillness looks on you." And I wanted to cry, not because it was romantic, but because no one had ever noticed that I had stopped rushing through life, and that maybe peace could be beautiful too. When his fingers first touched mine, it was accidental. But even that felt like a conversation, like he was asking, "Can I be near you?" Not just physically, but inside the places where memory still hurts and time has worn the softness thin. And I said yes. Without words, without movement, just by letting my hand stay. I didn't know how much I missed being looked at like that, not for youth or beauty or anything superficial, but with quiet awe, with curiosity. He never tried to decode me, never tried to solve me. He simply watched like he was letting me unfold at my own pace. Every part of me that I'd once felt the need to hide, I started to let breathe again. He made space. There was a night when we sat side by side, barely touching. The air was thick with something unspoken. He turned slightly, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my cheek. Still, he waited. I turned my head. Our eyes met, and I knew, even before anything physical ever happened, that we had already been inside each other's hearts. That was the beginning of the undressing. Not of clothes, but of layers. He told me about his past without ego. He told me about the ache of being misunderstood, of loving in ways that scared people away, and I told him things I hadn't said aloud in years. The guilt I carried, the dreams I let go of, the parts of myself I didn't think anyone could want anymore. He listened like those were the most precious things he'd ever been trusted with. We hadn't kissed yet. And somehow, that made everything feel more intimate, because he wasn't trying to get somewhere. He was being somewhere with me in that moment, in that exact second where our hearts were louder than our hands. When the first kiss did come, it was like something already known, like a home you'd never been inside, but somehow recognized the scent of. It wasn't hungry, it wasn't needy, it was tender, reverent, slow. A kiss that didn't ask for more, but offered everything. He touched my face like he was afraid it would disappear if he moved too fast, and I let him, not out of weakness, out of knowing, because when someone sees you, truly sees you, you don't flinch when they reach for you. You open. Every touch after that was a continuation of a sentence we'd started with words. Every stroke, every sigh, every shiver, it was like the body was finally saying what the heart had whispered all along. There was no game, no rush to undress for the sake of pleasure. The undressing was emotional first. It was trust. It was letting go of fear. It was feeling his hands on my skin and not bracing for disappointment, not waiting for rejection. Just breathing into being wanted wholly. I didn't feel exposed. I felt safe, and he never looked at me like he was lucky to be touching someone older. He looked at me like I was art. Like time had painted me with grace, and every line, every scar, every softness was part of something rare and beautiful. When he held me that first night, it wasn't the act itself that undid me, it was what came after. The silence, the warmth of his breath on the back of my neck, the way his fingers rested just above my heartbeat, as if to say, I hear you, and he did. The world will never understand what happened between us. That's okay. He never needed to prove it. I never needed to explain it. Our bodies spoke the truth before the world could even ask the question. The room wasn't lit with candles or music or anything scripted. Just a soft lamp in the corner and the kind of stillness that only comes when two hearts have finally stopped resisting. He stood a few steps away, not reaching, not rushing, just watching me like he was waiting for the moment to find its own rhythm. And it did. I don't know if it was the way he breathed, slow, steady, like he was calming himself, or the way his eyes never dropped from mine, not even once. It felt like we were both on the edge of something too big to name, too delicate to speak aloud. There had been so many moments leading up to this, moments of quiet glances, long talks, and the kind of laughter that makes you forget to be guarded. But this was something else. He came closer, gently, like the floor might crack if he moved too fast. When his hands reached for mine, they didn't pull. They simply waited open, and I placed mine inside his not because I had to, not because I was swept up in passion, but because it felt right, as natural as breathing, as necessary as water. There was no music, but my heart had a rhythm of its own, loud, steady, then trembling, not with fear, but with surrender, the good kind, the kind where you stop holding back from your own longing, where you let yourself be wanted fully. He didn't touch me with hunger, he touched me with reverence, like each inch of my skin was telling a story he wanted to learn by heart, and I let him, slowly. Carefully, there was no rush to peel away clothing, that came second. First, it was the slow unzipping of hesitation, the letting go of years of silence, of judgment, of believing I was too late for something like this. He didn't undress me like he was unwrapping something. He didn't grope or grab. He touched me like he was trying to hear something. His hands trembled, not from lust, but from tenderness. It wasn't about control. It was about listening. I could feel the ache in his fingers, not just for my body, but for the closeness, the permission, the quiet invitation I was giving him with every breath. I wasn't offering him perfection. I wasn't offering youth. I was offering presence, and he received it with open arms and closed eyes, like a man overwhelmed by a gift he didn't think he deserved. Every part of me that I once hid, he touched like it was sacred. My hips, my stomach, the lines across my thighs. He didn't skip past them or avoid them. He lingered, and in the dim hush of that room, I felt the kind of beauty that has nothing to do with mirrors and everything to do with being seen. There was a moment, so soft I almost missed it, when he pressed his lips just above my heart, not in a heated rush, but as if to say, "Thank you. Thank you for letting me close. Thank you for letting me hold this." I'd spent so long protecting myself, so long making peace with being untouched, and now here I was, letting a younger man explore me not with curiosity, but with reverence, not with desire alone, but with devotion. It wasn't about what he could take from me. It was about what we were creating together. He whispered my name once, just once, like it was a prayer, and then his mouth met mine, and nothing else mattered. The years, the rules, the outside world, they all melted. There was only us. The way our bodies moved together wasn't flawless. It wasn't rehearsed. There was fumbling. There was nervous laughter. There were moments we paused, just to breathe. But none of that broke the spell. If anything, it deepened it, because in those imperfections we found honesty. He didn't chase a climax. He didn't perform. He stayed close to me, aligned, listening with his hands, his breath, his chest against mine. We moved like waves, slow, deep, rising and falling, guided by something older than either of us, something wiser than fear, something softer than shame. And when he finally sank into me, there was no gasp or cry. Just stillness, just the quiet knowing that this was right, that we were meant to meet like this, not as bodies, but as souls that had waited long enough. It wasn't about the act, it was about what it meant. That someone still wanted me like this, that I could still want like this, that two people, separated by years and shaped by different worlds, could meet in a place where only truth mattered. His lips found the curve of my shoulder, and he held me like something precious, not fragile. His hands kept moving, not to take more, but to stay close, like the connection itself was the point, not the finish, not the fantasy, just the closeness, the heat, the silence between heartbeats. And when it was over, when our breathing slowed and the room returned to its quiet, I didn't feel exposed, I didn't feel used, I felt held. His hand never left mine. Time didn't matter in that room. Rules didn't exist. Only feeling, only trust, only the kind of surrender that doesn't take anything, but gives everything in return. When it was over, the world didn't rush back in. There were no dramatic thoughts, no sudden awareness of the hour or the age between us. There was only breath, his and mine, and the way they fell into the same rhythm without trying. He stayed, just like that, his chest against my back, one arm wrapped gently around me, his palm resting flat over where my heart was still fluttering like it hadn't fully returned to silence. And he didn't speak, he didn't ask how it was, he didn't try to name it or define it or wrap it in a sentence. He simply held me, not tightly, not possessively, just present, fully. In that quiet, I realized something. That love, the kind that shifts something inside you, doesn't always need to be talked about. Sometimes it's more honest when it doesn't say anything at all, when it just shows up in the stillness, warm and breathing and unafraid. His thumb moved slowly across my ribs, as if memorizing them, like he didn't want to forget the shape of this moment, or maybe like he knew I didn't want to either, and I didn't. I wanted to live in it for just a while longer, without thought, without time ticking behind my eyes. The window was cracked open, and the breeze slipped in, soft and chilled, brushing across our skin, reminding me that this was real, that this moment existed beyond just emotion or imagination, that this was two people laying beside each other after everything had been stripped away, not just clothes, but hesitation, walls, fear. There was no shame in my body, not with him. There was no self-conscious adjusting of sheets, no reaching for something to cover myself. I lay there exposed and untouched by judgment. His gaze had done something during all of it. It had unwrapped more than my dress. It had unwrapped my own silence, and suddenly I felt no need to hide from anything, not from him, not from myself. He shifted slightly, just enough to press a soft kiss at the top of my spine, not a kiss full of passion, a kiss full of presence. I felt it deep, not on my skin but under it, like his lips said, "I see you," without needing to speak a word. And I believed him. There was something different about the way we breathed in that silence, like we had returned to something primal, something pure, the kind of closeness that doesn't demand a future to be valid, the kind that exists completely in the now. I didn't think about tomorrow. I didn't wonder what we were or where it would go. I didn't need to. That wasn't what this was. It wasn't a promise. It was a moment, a truth, a small miracle in a world too full of noise. His hand was still on my chest, warm and grounding. I wondered if he could feel how deeply I was letting go, not just of him, but of everything that had kept me locked inside myself for so long. The doubts, the years, the belief that I had missed my window for something like this, that the kind of touch that reaches the soul was only meant for younger bodies, but he shattered that belief with every slow kiss, every careful breath, every moment he didn't rush or take or expect. He gave me space even while holding me, and I realized then that love doesn't always look like declarations or gifts or sweeping gestures. Sometimes it's just the quiet way someone stays, the way they rest their hand on your heartbeat like it matters, the way they don't ask for more than you're ready to give. I turned slightly just to look at him. His eyes were half closed, his face soft in the pale light, and when he looked at me, there was no question in his expression, no wondering, just understanding, just presence. He smiled, and it wasn't the kind of smile that asks anything in return. It was the kind that says, "I'm here," and so was I. He reached up to brush a strand of hair from my cheek, tucking it behind my ear like he'd done it 100 times before, like we had always known each other like this, even before this night. The room was still quiet, but it wasn't empty. It felt full of warmth, of something that felt ancient and immediate at the same time, something that didn't ask to be defined, just felt. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to break the spell, and I didn't have to. He stayed close, not trying to start something again, not pulling me toward him, just staying, letting the moment breathe, letting it speak in the language only stillness knows. His thumb kept tracing the edge of my skin, slow and lazy, like time didn't exist here, and in a way it didn't, not between us, not in that room. We weren't young or old or anything else. We were just honest, present, bare in every sense of the word. I thought of all the nights I'd gone to bed untouched, not just by hands, but by truth, by presence. I thought of the ache that had lived in me for so long, quiet and resigned. And I thought of how he'd walked in, not to rescue me, not to fill a void, but simply to see me, to be with me. And now here we were in the after. No promises were made, no future was spoken, but what lived between us in that silence was more real than any vow I'd ever heard. Because it didn't ask for anything, it didn't expect, it didn't need to be more than what it was. It was enough, and that's the thing no one tells you, that sometimes the deepest love doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in the quiet, after the heat, when the hands are still and the eyes are soft and the world has faded out, when someone just stays and breathes with you and sees you without needing to change a thing. That was the night I learned that love doesn't have to speak to be understood. It just has to stay. If this story reached something quiet inside you, if it made you remember, ache, or simply breathe a little deeper, like, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to feel seen too. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we tell truths, the kind that stay with you long after the screen fades to black until the next one. Stay open, stay soft, and remember, love doesn't care about time. It only cares about truth.